Warning. The following presentation contains information that might contradict much of what you have previously heard, or believe, about diet and metabolism, and contains elements that are not suitable for closed-minded individuals. Viewer discretion is advised. Enjoy.
Before we get into the discussion of metabolism on the biochemical level, let's step back here and take a look at the issue of metabolism for whole body as relates to metabolism and nutrition. Because without understanding the nutrition component of metabolism, it's very hard to get a grasp around the biochemical part of metabolism. So the first thing we need to do is take a look at some of the myths and misconceptions that some of you may have coming into this course, and we need to try to clarify some of the things that you might think are true but aren't really true. First, true or false, calories can be burnt. This is false. Calories are a unit of energy. They're a measure of the specific heat of water, to be more specific. That is the indication of the amount of energy it takes to raise 1 liter of water 1 degree centigrade or 1 degree Celsius. Because it's a unit of energy, or it's actually a unit of heat that's being measured, we can never burn calories. And so you can tell how much somebody actually understands about metabolism by the way in which they talk about some of these things. And one of the ways is by how they talk about calories. True or false? A diet means concentrating on what not to eat. This is false. Diets is simply an indication of what we are eating and what we are drinking. It's not about what we don't eat or what we don't drink. It's about what we are eating and what we are drinking. And so when we look at diets and dietary components later on, what you remember is that what we're talking about is what nutrients are being taken in, not what nutrients are being avoided. True or false? Being thin means having low body fat. This here is false. Appearing thin doesn't necessarily mean having low body fat. It just means that you have minimal amounts of ornamental fat. Ornamental fat is the subcutaneous adipose tissue. And so just because of the morphology and body compositional breakdown of morphology is not an indication of whether or not someone is low fat or over fat. It's an indication of what we can see. And so just because we don't necessarily see a lot of fat on a person doesn't necessarily mean that they're not storing a lot amount of fat, which means they don't have a large amount of adipose tissue. True or false? If I eat more fat and take in more calories than I use, I will be fat. And just like with everything else so far, it's false. The body's going to convert glucose metabolites, amino acid metabolites, and free fatty acids and free fatty acid metabolites into lipid droplets, fats. It's not because of a caloric imbalance, which we'll get to here in a second. And it's not about the amount of fat you're eating. It's about adipose tissue and adipocytes getting hormonal signals that say, go ahead and convert these metabolites into lipids. We also need to have a fair amount of dietary fat so that we can metabolize certain types of vitamins and allow for normal tissue functioning to take place. It's one of the downsides that we have seen with low-fat diets as it pertains to issues relating to fat metabolism and normal physiological functions. So let's take a look at this issue of calories as it relates to energetics, and let's go back and take a look at what does it mean to be a calorie. So calories are a unit of energy, and it's going to give us a relative amount of heat. And so it's based off the specific heat of water, and what it is, it's the amount of heat that's necessary to increase 1 gram of water 1 degree centigrade for the small c calorie, or 1 kilogram of water, or 1 liter, since specific gravity of water is 1 degree centigrade. So the small c calorie and the big C calorie are different units of energy. And so you'll hear me talk about calories and kilocalories interchangeably, because what we're usually measuring when we're talking about whole body metabolism, as well as the energetic pathways that we'll get to later on, is this large C calorie. And it has more to do with how we want to record the units more than anything else. Now, when we look at this measurement of calories in terms of caloric expenditure within what we do in the gyms or in the fitness centers, a lot of the exercise equipments are going to give us a unit of calories expended, because we can expend calories, but we cannot burn calories. And so that's where I was talking about how the misconception about burning calories comes into play. The expending of energy, the expending of calories that we see when we're looking at, say, the ergometers, the treadmills, the bikes, the Stairmasters, the rowing machines at the gym, even the caloric expenditure coming from your wrist monitors, your fitness monitors. What they're doing is that they're looking at general energy expenditure, and they converted that general energy expenditure into a unit of calorie. And so normally within the fitness centers, what they're doing is that they're measuring how much energy is actually being used by the unit during the time of exercise. And then they convert that amount of energy into the calorie. And then one of the other units is actually a better unit to use, which is what's referred to as the metabolic equivalent, or the MET. And that's the indication of how many kcals you're using per kilogram of body mass per hour. And so the metabolic equivalent is the better unit to be using when you're trying to measure your energy expenditure. Where at rest, you're using about 1 metabolic equivalent. However, once you start doing other activities, you'll start to increase the metabolic expenditure and thereby increase the metabolic equivalents that you're using for that period of time. And so we're going to move a little bit further here into the issue of calories as it relates to what most people think about when it comes to calories, in particular as it relates to body compositional and health issues.